Tide is turning. I think we're on the side of common sense and truth, so that's always the winning side to me. Whatever
You're on the side of misinformation and bigotry. Just letting you know, Gary.
happens, we talked about it last night. The tide was turning a couple of years ago, and they got a false extension. During COVID. During the Summer of Love, those very peaceful riots when America was burning down and Hollywood was rooting it on. After
America was you talk about the BLM protest? Who statistically were very non-violent? Is that what you're talking about? Again, I just accused you of bigotry and misinformation. You followed up immediately with misinformation. Funny how that works. Hey guys, I need you to do me a favor. Help me fight the algorithm. Go ahead and hit like, hit that subscribe button, and hit that bell icon for new notifications. Thank you. Let's go ahead and check out that goddamn Nerdrotic video real fast. So I'm going to go into a little bit of the backstory here.
Is there anywhere higher we can go?
So anyways, we got this YouTube channel, 1.74 million subscribers, Benny Johnson. Recently, he did Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic, how the internet destroyed woke Hollywood. We are the culture. What was it? We are the culture now? So it's an interview with Benny Johnson and Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic. Now, who is Benny Johnson? And there's no... wait, that's right. About is like here now, right? Yeah, here we go.
Is there anywhere higher we can go in the hotel?
Oh, then the preview video. Inside Trump's tallest skyscraper. Jesus Christ. About us, love God, family, America. Sure. Yeah, he's got all this stuff up here. But listen, we're gonna dive a bit more into this dude. So, good place to always start your research is Wikipedia. This will give you the broad overview of lots of topics, then you can dive into it. Benny Johnson is an American conservative political commentator and YouTuber. He was a staff writer at Buzzfeed until he was fired following revelations that many of his published articles were plagiarized. Johnson later worked at various conservative outlets. Johnson began, so he's worked for Breitbart. He's worked for The Blaze. The Blaze comes up a lot. He was a host on Newsmax TV. And he is the chief creative officer of Turning Points USA. Turning Points USA is an American nonprofit organization that advocates for conservative politics on high school, college, and university campuses. Oh, Turning Point USA is groomers. Good to know. It was founded in 2012 by Charlie Kirk and Bill Montgomery. I don't know who Bill Montgomery is, but Charlie Kirk, we know Charlie Kirk. TPUSA's interconnected affiliates groups include Turning Points Endowments, Turning Points Action, TPUSA Faith. So, I just want to stress, Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic, guys, they're not political. But they are going on to a show hosted by a guy who used to work for The Blaze, who used to work for, who I think still works for Newsmax, a chief creative officer for Turning Points USA. This guy is super fucking political, but don't worry, Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker aren't political, guys. They're against politics.
coming to Disney was a bad idea. Being in Celebration in the belly of the beast of Disney is a worse idea. Yes, I've been 10 years sober, but this will drive a man to drink.
Yes, the great intro there from Gary. Thank you. Brilliant acting, by the way.
Go away now.
Yeah, he said the line.
Tough town, boys. What you have?
Irish coffee. Hold the Irish.
Everything.
I got
The message.
Yeah, they're saying the lines. They're very brilliant writing. Like I said, these guys are anti-art. I'm just saying it.
These men need no introduction. The great Nerdrotics.
Hello.
And Critical Drinker.
All right.
And it's early in the morning, and we're drinking, boys.
Cheers to that.
This is...
I had coffee.
What does it feel like to be on the winning side of a culture war? Did you ever expect that? Because based on the numbers, and based on the data, and based on the scoreboard, you boys are on the...
They're on the winning side. Let's look at... So his evidence that they're on the winning side is this Disney thing. So this Disney chart, stock chart that seems to take place over 5 years and is lower than when it started, but like not much. So, what, it says it's down 16%? Of what? And I also want to stress, stock market and quality of whatever they produce are completely unrelated. Completely unrelated.
You boys are on the winning side of the culture war. And these multinational trillion-dollar corporations are losing.
I guess
I like how, let's just throw that out there and, our only evidence is stock market apparently. Great, classy.
always figured it would turn eventually just when the money ran out, because however much they might believe in their messaging or their political causes, ultimately they can't keep making stuff if they don't have money anymore. And they can only sustain so many flops, so many failures before they have to do something. And that's kind of what it feels like now. It's starting to see that turning point. And it's good to see. I mean, man, like, I just want to see them make good films again. Yeah. Good TV shows. Give us some good entertainment that lets us...
There's lots of good movies being made. Put yourself out there. You can go to film festivals and probably see lots of good movies. What are you looking for, man? Because that's the thing. Like, if you look up, Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic, most of what they cover is just, the big budget stuff. It's there's lots of smaller movies you could probably shout out and give them a bump and help them out. But instead, you make, 20 She-Hulk videos for reasons?
Escape from the humdrum existence that a lot of us have.
Godzilla -1 was excellent. I really like that one.
It's nice.
You have the Carl Weathers.
I had to pay tribute to the great man himself today.
Can we see? Can we see for the camera? Get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper.
I didn't have an
I was about ready to say that's an Arnold quote.
Apollo Creed t-shirt to hand, so this will have to do.
I gotta get one today.
There's Carl Weathers has been here, in this room. There's multiple signed photos of him on the wall.
That is cool.
So we stand in the presence of glory.
I'm in a bar, and it's a bar that had Carl Weathers in it, so that's pretty good to me.
Tide is turning. I think we're on the side of common sense and truth, so that's always the winning side to me. Whatever
you're on the side of misinformation, and bigotry. Just letting you know, Gary.
Happens. We talked about it last night. the tide was turning a couple of years ago, and they got a false extension, during COVID, during the Summer of Love, those very peaceful riots when America was burning down and Hollywood was rooting it on.
America was you talking about the BLM protest? Who statistically were very non-violent? Is that what you're talking about? Again, I just accused you of bigotry and misinformation. You followed up immediately with misinformation. Funny how that works.
After Hollywood had divided the nation through their scripts and their adult pretenders being idiots and demonizing half the country, so now they
citation needed, please.
Put that off for a couple of years, which was in 2019. Woke stuff was failing already. Terminator Dark Fate's a great example.
Okay.
It's like
Terminator Dark Fate was like, what? That's like the 5th Terminator movie in a franchise that has been struggling because it already had the perfect ending with Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And they've been desperate to try and make a new one because they want to make money off that franchise. The closest thing we've gotten to a good continuation of that franchise is that TV series, Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles. The movies have ranged from meh to bad. Flat out bad. I think Genesis is probably my least favorite one. I thought Salvation was actually okay because it did something different. Of the many attempts to add Terminator 3, Dark Fate might be my favorite, but that's a low bar. I wasn't a fan of Dark Fate at all.
Like the worst subversion of an intellectual property you'll ever see personified in like the first 5 minutes, where they kill
John
Connor in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, that and I can get where you're not happy that they killed John Connor in the first 5 minutes, but it makes sense to try to keep the franchise alive, to move it to something besides John Connor. I'm not saying I like the movie. The movie sucked, but I get why they did that.
With the CGI de-aged Edward Furlong, and it actually looked pretty good. The CGI
pretty good, yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, but then it destroys the Terminator franchise. That was written.
How does it destroy the Terminator franchise? How does that destroy the Terminator franchise? Those first 2 movies still exist, and by the way, those first 2 movies are the best of the Terminator franchise. Period. I don't know how Dark Fate would destroy the franchise any more than Rise of the Machines or Genesis. Genesis was really bad. So I'm not sure. Like, source?
By James Cameron, by the way. So it was already on its way out then, of course.
James Cameron came back to produce Dark Fate. I'm just going to point out that, like, of the ones past the second one, the part of the franchise that had James Cameron's fingers in it the most was Dark Fate.
Of course, we get the great reset happening over the next 2 years. But the reason they extended that for 2 years, that's something that was naturally dying anyway. Now it's just gonna die harder, for lack of a better term. It's gonna go down in flames and cost them millions. And as Drinker was saying, it was only a matter of time. It was if you followed comic books.
Now, again, this is just tons of misinformation he's essentially perpetuating here. So, movies are suffering post-COVID. Yes, they are. Why? Because the streaming window under COVID has shrunk to almost nothing. Most movies will come to streaming within 6 weeks, which means going to the theater to see a movie, less important to the average person. If you're a reviewer, yeah, you'll go see a movie. But to the average person, going to the theater doesn't mean much, because in a month and a half, you'll be able to watch it at home anyway. So, if you're going to go to the movie, you're going to save your money and really go see the movies that are big events. And that's another issue. So, COVID shut down, and the film studios had a whole bunch of movies on the backlog that were getting put together. And then when they started reopening, they got a whole bunch of these big event movies ready to go. And then 2021, and especially 2022 and 2023, we had so many huge event movies. So goddamn many huge event movies that they no longer became events. So suddenly something like Indiana Jones 5, which should have been a big event, didn't matter. Because there's been so many goddamn event movies. So this argument that, like, people aren't going to see the movies because, there's too many women and minorities in them? Or because, like, they'll be streaming in a couple weeks? Like, which do you think is more likely it? I lean towards the fucking streaming thing, but, that doesn't suit your narrative, does it? So,
if you're a nerd for any amount of time, you would see, like, you're subverting everything. And you can't continue to subvert stories and expect to make money off them. They were already established. You can't.
Now he's going into comic books, and as I've already gone through this year, going back into comic books, there's still so goddamn many great comic books. The argument that somehow comic books are failing because there aren't good stories anymore is such goddamn bullshit. Like, even the idea that, like, comic books are, like, too woke and everybody's chased away from the wokeness. The fuck are you even talking about? What, are you talking about Safe Space and Snowflake and Trailblazer in that comic book New Warriors that was never fucking released? What are we talking about?
Can't subvert Luke Skywalker. You can't subvert Han Solo. You can't.
Okay. So Han Solo died trying to save his son as a good father would. Han Solo died being an extremely good, loving, and caring father. Luke Skywalker died doing the most badass thing we've ever seen any Jedi do. You can have issues with these movies. I just want to point out, those characters were respected in those movies.
Try to erase Captain Kirk, which is what Paramount is trying to do right now.
How? Erase Captain Kirk? What the fuck are you... Okay. So, what he's talking about with erase Captain Kirk is almost certainly the William Shatner thing, where William Shatner pointed out that he wasn't on the main menu for the Star Trek franchise page for Paramount Plus. And if you go to the Paramount Plus page, they choose one character from each series, essentially, to represent each one. And for the original series, they chose Spock. And William Shatner was just pointing out, oh, why am I not on here? And then all the chuds were like, yeah, you should be on there. And now Nerdrotic is somehow pushing the idea that they're erasing Captain Kirk, which they absolutely are not. Captain Kirk is actually a recurring character in Strange New Worlds, so I don't know how that's erasing Captain Kirk.
No, it's not going to win. That's Star Trek is Captain Kirk. Star Wars is Luke.
No, actually, I would argue Star Trek and even Star Wars are not just one character. Star Trek is, like, actually, if I were to pick one character that is Star Trek, which is kind of tricky because there's so many great Star Trek characters, I would lean towards Spock, actually. But the fact is, Star Trek proved that it doesn't even need Spock to be a thriving franchise, because Next Generation didn't even have a Spock episode until, I want to say, season 6, maybe season 5. It was late in the series where Spock finally popped up. Throughout most of that series, you have characters like Picard, Riker, Data, Troy, Worf. Goddamn, Worf. Talk about somebody who's put a lot of goddamn hours into Star Trek. Way more than Kirk. Any actor who played Kirk. Dumb and Dumber. Kirk in Strange New Worlds is played by Paul Wesley. I think that's his name. Anyways, he appears in one episode of season 1, and I wasn't thrilled with his performance, but then he's in, like, I want to say he's in, like, half of season 2, and he's really kind of won me over in season 2. I'm kind of digging it, but, yeah, saying Star Trek is Kirk is myopic at best. Star Trek has proven is a franchise, it is a universe, and it does not depend on any one specific character. Tuvok is pretty cool, and Tim Russ is pretty awesome as well. But also trying to say that Star Wars is Luke Skywalker is a weird take too, because I would argue if we're going to pick characters that are Star Wars, yeah, sure, maybe Luke Skywalker, but you also got Anakin Skywalker, you got Han Solo, you got Leia Organa, and now you have Rey and Kylo Ren. These are huge characters in the Star Wars canon now. Just saying one is the main character in the entire franchise is myopic and frankly stupid.
Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, and it's not much after that, and they're finding that out, and they thought they could make their own stories for a modern audience that doesn't exist. The modern audience is the same as the old audience. We just like good stuff.
The modern audience is the modern audience, Gary. Yes. The fuck?
Die Harder.
Yeah.
I think they actually made that movie with
They
Bruce
did.
Willis. I think that's a...
The sad thing is, though, that, like, whether or not the tide turns, the damage that's been done to all of these franchises is kind of irreparable, because we've now no longer got...
Let's see what his examples are, because I'm trying to figure out what franchises have been damaged to be irreparable.
the ability to have a Star Wars movie with Luke, Han, and Leia in it.
Yes.
You know, the actors have passed away or they're too old now. We're not going to see...
Well, them being too old has been an issue for a while now. That's just aging.
Another great Star Trek movie. And it's such a loss because that time is now past and we're not going to get it back. And the movies that they have made, these new Star Wars films, they're never going to be undone. They can never be erased from history. And...
Okay. Listen, I did not like Rise of Skywalker at all. Erased from history? Like, yeah, bad movies exist and they cannot be erased from history. True? The fuck?
Again, that's something that we're never going to get past, unfortunately, which is a shame.
Okay, if you can't get past that there are bad Star Wars movies, I don't know what to say other than grow the fuck up. It's that fucking simple. Grow up, buddy. Yes, bad movies exist. Deal with it. You want to know, like, probably the first franchise I kind of felt real... I don't know. The Star Wars prequels, maybe. Also, the Matrix sequels. I was so pumped for the Matrix sequels, and I was so disappointed in those ones. However, we still got a great first Matrix movie, so, and that movie is still great. It's super 90s, but it's awesome still to this day. So, like, even if there are movies in a franchise you dislike, it doesn't mean it's destroyed. You can still watch the things you like in it.
Like, there's this meme from The Simpsons where Bart's like, this is the worst day of my life, and Homer's like, it's the worst day of your life so far. Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of Star Wars fans thought about with Anakin talking about sand. Like, that used to be the thing. We're like, wow, Star Wars can't go any lower. Anakin talked about how sand gets everywhere. It's like, oh, it can get worse, and it will get worse.
Oh, modern Hollywood.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it ever got worse than that scene. That's just my personal opinion, but yeah, that scene was a fucking low point.
Has taught us things can always get worse.
The
prequels are now looked on fondly.
Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to talk about that. Like, now people are like nostalgic for the prequels.
The Hobbit, which, you know, isn't good. People are like, oh, it wasn't so bad after watching The Rings of Power.
You always judge them in relation to what came before them.
Yeah.
So we judge the prequels in relation to the original Star Wars trilogy, which was never going to measure up. That was a high bar. But then we see the sequels and we judge them in relation to the prequels and realize, okay, maybe they weren't so bad after all. It's all relative.
But I don't think it's going to happen with any of this modern... I don't think people are going to look back at the Disney sequel trilogy going, you know, we were a little bit harsh. No, we weren't harsh enough. We weren't harsh enough. That would be my looking back on it, especially after The Force Awakens. But we're at...
Yeah, it's really coming off like you guys need to fucking grow up and get past Star Wars at this point. we'll never forgive Star Wars. Just, you guys need to grow the fuck up. Seriously. Like I said, I disliked Rise of Skywalker. I did like a 10-minute video bashing it when it came out. It sucks. Grow up. Like, there's other things in life. Bad movies exist. They always have existed.
At the end of this era now, so now we're just watching the collapse. They're not even.
And the fact is, they're talking about how, like, oh, you know, the sequels suck. And now they're looking at what's going to happen in the future right in the face. So, like, they're like, oh, now people are liking the prequels, but the sequels suck. Now, what do you think is going to happen when the next set of Star Wars movies come out in, like, 10 years? When episodes 10, 11, and 12 come out. And they will, because Disney wants to make money off this franchise. When those movies come out, people are going to talk about how great the sequel trilogy was, how it was a masterclass. Because the hatred that the sequels get now was pretty much equal to the hatred the prequels got back in the day. It's just this cycle with Star Wars. It's going to keep on coming. The new thing sucks. Old things are great.
Coming, like, Hollywood collectively is coming out with half the entertainment they did last year. Overall, we're talking TV shows and films, and
yes, because they had a huge catalog because they shut down for most of 2020 and they were trying to get it out. And also because the strikes slowed down production on a lot of stuff too. You gonna bring up that stuff, Gary?
You know, I put up the list in my last video. Of the tentpole releases this year, only 4 are not sequels or prequels or attached to a previous franchise. You can't call them original because a couple of them are adapting books, but there's out of 4 all the year. That's it. Everything else is like a third.
Oh well, he's actually hitting on a different issue. So franchise movies, big movie studios are pretty much exclusively interested in franchise movies right now, and you can say that's an issue because it is. It really kind of is. But I mean, it is what makes the money. I do feel like recently we're seeing kind of a shift in that. And I think, well, hopefully what I'm hoping is that studios will start taking more of a chance with indie films and push those out there a bit more. Because I feel like we're starting to see franchises, like so many movie studios wanted to just be the MCU and they just started pushing out franchise movies. And I feel like people are getting sick of them. And so, yeah, I think we're going to hopefully see a push for more independent movies getting pushed by studios. Hopefully. Crossing fingers.
In 4th sequel. It's not even 2. We're in 3s and 4s. Despicable Me 4, Furiosa, which is looks terrible.
Mad Max.
Furiosa looks terrible? Dude, Mad Max Fury Road. Yes, it is a franchise movie based the 4th movie in that series. It is also the best movie in that series by a decent margin. Mad Max Fury Road was, in my opinion, an amazingly well done, well crafted action movie. Just absolutely brilliant, fast paced, beginning to end, told a coherent story with characters you care about, and just breakneck action. And with that movie established, frankly, in my opinion, after that, George Miller can do whatever the fuck he wants with the franchise. And if that means doing a Furiosa prequel, guess what? I'm in the theater to watch it. Let's do it. But, like, saying it sucks? Why? Because it stars a woman? Furiosa's always been a woman. It's a prequel about Furiosa. The fuck?
Prequel nobody wanted.
A prequel nobody wanted.
With a strong.
George Miller wanted it. George Miller wanted that prequel. And George Miller is the filmmaker. And I want him to do an idea that is getting his creative juices going. So if that's the idea that gets creative juices going and he decides to push it forward, I'm game.
Strong female character.
Right.
Finally.
I hear finally.
We've been waiting 10 years for this.
I don't need to see Mad Max in my Mad Max movie.
Yeah.
He's the patriarchy.
It's a Furiosa prequel about Furiosa, for fuck's sake.
We don't need Luke Skywalker.
We don't need Luke Skywalker and Star Wars.
I mean, he wasn't in the prequels.
Why the creative bankruptcy? Why the cultural decay? What's the difference between...
Oh, that is, I can answer that quite easily. It's capitalism. Studios just want to do whatever will make money, and the franchises for a while were the money makers, so they're just pushing out franchise movies, as many as they could.
Between now and the 80s, there's all these photos of stars from the 80s. Carl Weathers is up there doing why no more memes like that? Why no more of that? That's classic. It's incredible.
We've lost testosterone in Hollywood, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Testosterone in Hollywood? The fuck?
But the other problem is budgets. Like,
Yeah.
movies are costing $200-300 million now, whereas...
That's actually a good point. Movies are way too expensive right now. Wildly so expensive. And that was a side effect of the franchise movies too. When you are signing up decent named actors for do 10 movies, their paychecks got blown up, which means these movies are going to get more and more expensive. And while, especially the MCU, those movies would go in and get, a big old fucking box office return, the bloating budget didn't really mean too much. But now those movies are getting a bit less return. The budget's becoming an issue, so now they need to start making movies a bit cheaper. Maybe do $100 million movie. It's weird talking about that being a cheaper movie, but this is the world we live in.
These films that we talk about fondly from the 80s, like The Predators or The Commandos or The Terminator Part...
Okay. I think it's interesting. So, yeah. So, the first Predator, and even Predator 2 is pretty good. Actually, I'm okay with all the Predator movies except for The Predator. But the second movie he named was Commando. So, I don't want to shit on Commando. But Commando is kind of like the Arnold Schwarzenegger's Roadhouse. It is entertaining, but not because it's fucking good. It is dumb fun. It's ridiculous. It's almost like a cartoon of an action movie. So talking about that it's a great example of great movie making. The fuck are you talking about?
Part 1. They were done for $10 million, $20-30 million.
Okay, so you also, that's a terrible metric because there's also fucking inflation that exists. Wow.
Peanuts in today's money.
Yeah.
And so you can afford to take more risks with films like that because there's not as much money at stake. When you're sinking $300 million on a film, it has got to succeed. And so they end up being super safe. What is the most...
Okay, he's actually hitting on a decent point there. He is correct on that one.
Guaranteed easy way to make money? We'll take an existing franchise with a built-in fan base, a character that's beloved.
Again, a correct point, yes.
And we'll resurrect them. We'll bring old actors back who aren't doing so much now and bring them in and use it as a launch pad to launch a new franchise with younger, cheaper actors. That's what they think they're going to do.
Yes. Well, I mean, I do want to point out, his key example, if you want to talk about, how they did that with Star Wars, because they did. Well, and it also kind of makes sense for Star Wars, because every trilogy's had its own, a new generation of heroes, essentially. So it makes sense to do something like that with Star Wars. But also, every single Star Wars sequel made over $1 billion.
And it ends up, they produce, the blandest, most corporatized garbage imaginable.
It depends. It varies. I know you guys don't I know Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic don't like Last Jedi. I thought Last Jedi was fantastic. I thought Force Awakens, even though it was super fucking derivative of A New Hope, I thought it did a good job. I thought it was well directed and well made. Rise of Skywalker, I was not a fan of. But you get bad movies and good movies. Just like you always did. These guys are talking about, the past. They were all fucking gems. And even Critical Drinkers talk about, oh, yeah, they're all gems in the past, fucking Commando. No, they're not all gems in the past. You just usually forget about the bad ones. You forget about the bad ones, and you just remember the good ones. And then you go forward, and you think, oh, movies were better back then. Nope. You get a mix of good ones and bad ones, just like you do now.
This is why we end up with the creative bankruptcy, because they don't want to take risks, because there's too much at stake.
But there are no more movie stars. Like, so my wife is just a simple observer.
I think a key, like, there are less movie stars than there used to be, for sure, but I think a key actor who kind of blows up that argument would be Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt is pretty much a movie star. They get him to star in movies that even he really should even star in. And just purely because of the name. Like, he was the voice of Mario, for fuck's sake. Chris Pratt is a movie star, just in the classic sense.
Of culture, right? She's what you'd call a consumer. They're just your basic consumer who will go see the things she likes or go follow the trends that she would like to follow. She asked the other day, is there a movie star that's even remotely our age? And we couldn't name one, actually.
No.
Like,
Chris Pratt, I just gave you one.
we couldn't name one. I'm 37. And we couldn't name like a proper movie star that's 37 years old.
No. I mean, even guys like The Rock, which was always tipped, he was good.
No, The Rock's actually a good example, too. The Rock's pretty much a movie star as well.
Going to be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's 50 now. And for all the films he's made and all the money he's made, name one of them that had any influence on the culture. They don't have any cultural impact.
Did The Rock do any movies that had cultural impact? But yeah, not really. I would argue Chris Pratt's already got Guardians of the Galaxy under his belt. That's, I think, is going to have a decent cultural impact. Those are great movies. Fucking, you guys were praising the shit out of Mario when it started making money. He's got Jurassic Park movies under his belt. Say what you will about them.
They're just money-making endeavors.
Yes.
That's all they are. And yeah, there's no stop.
Pedro Pascal. Absolutely, Bob the Old Ways. Thank you. That's another one.
Product. Consume product.
You can make arguments for a couple, maybe Chris Pratt, but they're like... A movie star is just for the youngsters in the audience, is a star like, I'm going to go see this Tom Cruise movie. I'm going to go see this Sylvester Stallone movie. Don't care what the movie's about. It's Sylvester Stallone shooting people. That's what we used to go see movies for.
Well, an argument can be made that that's not even necessarily a bad thing, because there's plenty of bad movies we saw because of the movie star in them. Don't you think it should be more, let's go see this movie because it seems like an interesting premise or a cool idea? There's plenty of good actors in the world that can carry a movie.
That's a movie star, or it's a great actor.
Excellent point, Scott Weber. Maybe young people don't hero worship celebrities. That's actually not a bad thing. Excellent point.
Back in the day when Al Pacino was in his prime, or Robert De Niro was in the prime, or Jack Nicholson, you would go see those movies for their actual acting. We don't have actors anymore. That's why I say adult pretenders. We have...
The fuck? No, we have plenty of great actors. What are you talking about? This argument is just so bad. So immediately, like, the implication is that movie stars are good actors. Arnold Schwarzenegger did get better. Like, Arnold Schwarzenegger did a genuinely good job in a movie like Total Recall. And True Lies. The highlight of True Lies is actually Arnold Schwarzenegger's really good performance. But, like, his early career, like Hercules in New York, he was atrociously bad in that one. He was able to sell characters like Conan and Terminator because they're pretty simple characters. And he did get better as an actor and work with really good directors. But these guys weren't just great actors, and that's why they became movie stars. There are plenty of people who are vastly better actors who never became remotely as popular as Arnold Schwarzenegger or Tom Cruise or Sylvester Stallone. Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman's a goddamn chameleon who can just master any fucking role he puts his mind to. He was never as popular as any of the movie stars that you usually think of. But yeah, there are... I'm trying to think. There are really good actors working... another good example of a movie star working today, Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling's a pretty prominent movie star. I would definitely qualify him as a movie star. these arguments are just so weird and nonsensical, and depending on people, like, these are like, my evidence for these arguments is your nostalgia, and that's it.
We have influencers. We have people who take the role, like Brie Larson, who takes the role of Captain Marvel to be a platform, not to be a role.
Actors have always done shit like that, Gary. I played it in a video where I cut it out, but Marlon Brando, when he won the Academy Award, had that Native American woman accept it so she could make a speech about how the Native American people are treated. Actors do shit like that all the time for pretty much as long as the art form has been around. So, like, complaining about Brie Larson saying maybe we should have more movie critics that aren't just white dudes comes off as really fucking insecure, Gary.
So when was the last time you said, I'm going to go see that Chris Pratt movie, right? I get, and not talking on Chris Pratt. I really like Chris Pratt, based on what I know, which is not much. But I've never said, show me that Chris Pratt movie.
No,
right?
No.
Where, like, the Schwarzenegger is bigger than the title of the movie, right? That's inverted.
We'd go see crappy Schwarzenegger movies because he was in it.
Yes.
You know.
So that seems like Hollywood's lost so much.
Yeah, no, he was a massive draw. Arnold Schwarzenegger is like a flash in the pan, though. Like, in the 80s and early 90s, he was unstoppable.
Much power, because the movie star was the power, and the control of that entity and the ownership of that entity seems like a horrible business.
The power now lies with the franchises and the characters in some way. Like, you want to see a Superman movie. It doesn't really matter which actor's playing Superman. It's the character that people want to see. Or, you know, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, that's bigger than any of the actors that are in it. It's just a gigantic brand. And so that's where the power now lies in Hollywood, which again is probably why they try so hard to extend these franchises beyond their natural lifespan, because the franchise or the brand is what's making the money.
Well, I mean, I'll go ahead and point out, part of the reason why the studios were excited for comic book movies is that comic books are a medium that have been around for decades and decades and decades, with so many stories to draw from, that means that they can keep that franchise going for a while, hopefully. And that's just why, because it's something that naturally lasts for a while.
Money, no.
Yeah, and as far as the modern movie star is concerned, we got to know them. Social media. So they would annoy us once a year at an award show and bloviate about something stupid. But now we get to hear him every single day. Like Mark Hamill, I wouldn't even want to see him play Luke Skywalker again. I can't stand the dude.
Mark Hamill is based as fuck. Just saying.
The dude's insufferable on Twitter, and I don't even follow him.
Talk about failure to launch. Like, Rachel Ziegler's was supposed to be the next thing.
Ouch. Yeah.
And then she got on social media.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can correct that ship. Maybe I'm wrong.
No.
She was supposed to be the next thing? Like, she's still starring in the live action Snow White? I don't know where you're getting she's supposed to be the next thing at. But I for what it's worth, they do try to make actors a thing, and they frequently fail. Sam Worthington, goddamn, what was the name? The dude who played Captain Boomerang in the Suicide Squad, both of them actually. God, what was his name? They tried to make him a thing. Jai Courtney. Lots of actors, they try to make them a thing and they don't take off. That's a very common thing and has nothing to do with social media.
I don't think so. Or it's going to take a long time.
A lot of humility. It would take her to come out and say, I was wrong, which good luck. It would work. It would actually work, but they just, their ego will not allow them to do that. Same with corporations. All they have to do is Kathleen Kennedy comes out. This was 10 years. This is 5 years ago. This ship has sailed. But if she came out 5 years ago and went, we f***ed up. Sorry for this language, but we demonize the fans. We shouldn't have done that. We're going to try to make the...
Whoa. When did they demonize the fans, Gary? When the fuck did that happen? I missed that. When Kathleen Kennedy demonized the fans, I need a serious fucking citation on that one.
Best Star Wars possible, and from here on out, any of our actors, any of our creatives will just talk about how much they love Star Wars, and they're going to do the best they can.
And I resign.
Problem over.
Yeah, that would help.
Yeah, and I resign. Problem over.
Yeah.
In
I'm
24
gonna put on a
hours.
Jar Jar Binks costume of shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna walk through the streets, and you're all gonna be able to shout shame at me, and like Game of Thrones scene.
Yep.
And I think you could have actually won. I think that actually a lot of people would have respected that.
Everybody
humility
would have respected
and a
it.
genuine.
What the fuck? Can these guys like just deal with the fact that Kathleen Kennedy is the hand-chosen successor of Lucasfilm? Hand-chosen by George Lucas.
Apology. It's hard
Yeah.
to still be mad at someone when they've
Yes.
demonstrated both of those things, but they won't because their standard MO is just to double down on what they've done before and just keep going.
That's where risk averse comes in. So it's risk averse. It's easier to demonize half of your paying customers than be called a racist. Because if Kathleen Kennedy had done that, then the people within her own organization would have called her out for bending the knee to the chuds and the right wing and the alt-right and all that
Yeah,
BS
that's right.
that they started.
Oh,
so
man.
it's their lie. It's their negative. And like Hollywood was, I don't want to say sold.
My God, he's just layering in the lies and misinformation here. So like the chuds say negative things that aren't even valid critiques, and then you're saying again, if she were to apologize, she would be bending to the chuds, which potentially she should be. She should be. She would be. But this is all fucking hypotheticals. We're like 20 steps ahead of fucking reality at this point.
I don't want to absolve them of any.
Yeah. If this woman grovels in front of me, I guess that will be enough. Just, what the fuck?
Responsibility. They willingly bought into the lie of DEI, and brought that in identity politics, and they thought that was the way to go and make money. Of course, we heard the head of BlackRock say we're forcing behaviors because they're
The head of BlackRock say they're forcing behaviors. Well, number one, we need serious evidence to suggest that they are doing anything about DEI. In case you're wondering, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I want to say. But BlackRock would be more of the... we covered this on the initiative. The investment firm thing. ESG. Environmental Social Governance. Companies can do an ESG report to show how essentially woke they are. So investors can see it and choose if they want to invest in that company. Fun fact, the ESG report is optional. Nobody has to do an ESG report. It's just something they can do to appeal to woke investors. That's it. And if you actually looked at one, because they're all fucking public, you can look at them. You can see that all they do is pick and choose stuff that has diversity in it and be like, hey, look, we did this thing that has diversity. That's it. They just cherry pick their examples and put them in the report. Nothing fancy. The benefit of doing the report is that they can hand it to a potential investor, and the investor can go, ooh, I like that they did this with this project. I will invest in this. That's it.
completely open about what they're trying to do and socially engineer. And it was a bunch of like-minded people going, sure.
It's not social engineering. It's optional, bro.
Is it a vast conspiracy? No, it's a conspiracy of idiots and incompetence and lack of creativity. There's no talent left. All the talent's being driven out. We're hearing that if you follow Film Thread.
Well, I mean, if you want, if you're looking for just raw talent in filmmaking, again, look at the indie circuit. That's where you're going to see. You're not going to, if you're looking for raw, talented filmmakers, I don't know why you're watching stuff from Disney. I mean, maybe you'll get something there, but if you're just looking for that, you need to look at the indie circuit. Go to film festivals.
They're going to be covering it the rest of the year, pretty much. And you're going to hear anonymous people from the Film Actors Guild, the Writers Guild of America, and all the other guilds saying, we're not down with this. We're forced into it because we're afraid of our own union. So, it's
They're afraid of their own union. These guys like to demonize unions too. But they're not but they are anti-corporate. It's so full of shit. They're anti-art. That's the theme. These guys are anti-art. I don't know how else to demonstrate it any more than just pointing out their own words.
Willingly bought into it, and now they're going to go broke.
Is there going to be a class action lawsuit by white people who are working in Hollywood saying this is this is by the letter of the law?
If there was, that'd be hilarious. But let's see the full.
The 1964 Civil Rights Act says you cannot discriminate against race.
Nah, they would never have the balls to do it.
No.
Not one person.
Okay, so white people suing Hollywood because they're not getting enough jobs. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's look into the validity of that statement. Okay, so real quick, biggest movies of 2023. So here's instantly a winner. Barbie, directed by a woman, starring a woman. Got me on that one. Super Mario Brothers movie, directed, starring a man. Aaron Horvath. Sounds like a man. Probably a white man. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Okay, so there's a black person playing Miles. I'm pretty sure it was directed by white guys, though. Oh, maybe not. I know Lord and Miller coach. Okay. So we only get, of the top three, only one. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, starring a white man, starring the same white man as Super Mario Brothers, and then directed by a white man. Oppenheimer, starring a white man, directed by a white man. Little Mermaid, I think that had a black director and starring a woman. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanium, starring a white man, directed by a white man. Wonka, starring a white man, directed by a white man. John Wick 4, starring a white man, directed by a white man. Sound of Freedom, directed by a white man, starring a white man. I'm going to skip Taylor Swift here. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, starring a white man, directed by a white man. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, directed by a white man, starring a white man. I'm getting the feeling that white men are doing okay in Hollywood. Just a sense looking at these movies. Maybe they're okay.
It'd have to be a collective movement of like hundreds of different people, because whoever does it is going to get blacklisted for the rest of their natural lives for daring to speak out about this.
Hollywood makes movies about how bad the communist scare was.
I mean, they really like to push the idea that somehow the white man is being brought down. It's really fucking weird.
And the Red Scare, and how unfair it was for communist directors and producers.
And they're doing the same thing
to be put on blacklists, but, but now they're being put on whitelists, right?
It turns out there was a bunch
ranks.
of commies in Hollywood too. So
yeah, shocker! It's a real shocker there.
Well, fun fact: artists tend to be left-leaning. Not all of them, but they tend to be.
Oh, that was kind of true.
But what you're seeing is a gradual purge of the ranks of people in Hollywood, the creatives, the writers, the producers. They're slowly being purged of the wrong kind of people. And so at every level, you're getting these people in who just believe in the cause, believe in the message. The message. Tick some box or other. And those are the people that are now destroying the industry because they don't have the...
I really get the sense that either they don't know anything about the industry or... they're just pushing a narrative, which I lean towards pushing the narrative, because if you watch earlier in the video, I point out times where Critical Drinker, Gary's been full of shit, but Critical Drinker had a couple moments where he pointed out something that is an actual issue, but then, he attributes it to the wrong cause.
Talent to back up their positions.
So that's across industries. My mentor, Andrew Breitbart, used to say that...
Well, at least he's not hiding that he's political.
Politics is downstream of culture, and culture
That is actually true. I've actually learned that, yes.
Was the nexus Hollywood obviously creates a huge portion of culture, along with sports, recording industry, and media industry. But politics then responds to that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm begging for Hollywood to learn the error of their ways. Because the faster Hollywood does that, the faster the political world actually corrects itself. Because it has to happen in that order, right? And so, like, will Hollywood learn their ways? Is it like Leroy Jenkins going on right now, where it's like they're just going to go down? They will never apologize, and they'll bankrupt the entire industry. The Hollywood sign will be in flames before anybody apologizes.
I think it's Hollywood and culture, the relationship between them is not like hierarchical. It's like...
It's just still up. It's very helpful. Top 5 Hollywood execs made $500,000 in the last 5 years. David Zaslav made $500 million in the last 5 years. Ari Emanuel made $350 million in the last 5 years. These guys are doing quite well for themselves. Quite well. So arguing that that Hollywood is burning down, you're gonna need a citation on that one, a serious citation. I mean, we just did look at top domestic movies. Barbie made $636 million. Super Mario Brothers made 574. These are domestic numbers. I want to stress, if you're wondering how many movies have made domestically $1 billion, that answer is 0. So just looking at these, there are still movies making money. Now, I want to point, like, for 2023, there is quite a dip. Like, normally you'd have way more big money makers. Sound of Freedom should not be in the top 10. That is because that was a fucking scheme. That was like them selling tickets. Donate a ticket to a friend. It was such a scheme. It was so full of shit. But yeah.
Cyclical. So
yes.
Hollywood is both a reflection and an influence on culture. It reacts to what it thinks culture is because it wants to try and reflect what the modern audience wants. But it also then, because of what they're producing, it has that mass influence on the thinking of their audience. And so it moves in a cycle. And the problem is it becomes self-reinforcing. So they think that this is what people want. They see it on social media, particularly. They're hugely guilty of this. Social media is not reality. And the kind of people who spend most time on it are not real people.
Yeah.
And so
that is a self-report on him. Just saying.
They react to that for an audience that doesn't even exist. And then they act surprised when their movies fail time and time again.
Well, we just saw last year Barbie, Oppenheimer, Super Mario Brothers. Those movies did not fail whatsoever. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 did quite well as well.
You can do better, Senator.
And the fact
I just
that
couldn't believe that scene.
It is, and like it's been going on for almost a decade now. We're at 8 years in since 2015, 2016 when this really started. It's been there, but it never like ruled Hollywood, and now it absolutely rules Hollywood. And they're just starting to figure it out 8 years in when some of us were calling it out 5 years ago, and it's great. I think Hollywood is part of a 20th century model that just didn't adapt fast enough. It'll always be around. Like radio will always be around. There'll always be music. There'll always be Hollywood, but it's not even the biggest thing now. Video games are the biggest form of entertainment.
There might be truth in what he's saying to a degree. Like, movies will always be around. They just won't be the biggest thing. There might be truth to that, but like, its downfall has nothing to do with what they're saying, like wokeness or like bringing down the white male or anything like that. Nothing whatsoever to do with it. It just has to do with changes in culture.
Entertainment, by far, they dwarf what Hollywood does in a year, even in their best year. So yeah, there'll always be scripted entertainment, but Hollywood will contract now. and it will be. We're seeing it happen right before our eyes. Studios, the old studios are selling out, and it's all going to contract, and it's going to be about.
Oh god, are we talking about like mergers and shit? That's a whole separate issue, Gary. The mergers aren't happening because they aren't making money. The mergers are happening because they want more money. Because they're trying to build up as much of a monopoly as possible so they can just get all the fucking money. It's corrupt as fuck.
4 entities like it used to be in the beginning, but it's going to be the tech companies. Apple will control some of Hollywood, even though nobody watches their stuff, because they have just all the liquid cash in the world.
It is worth noting, I've heard fantastic things about Apple TV series. Fantastic. I haven't seen any of them, but I've heard amazing things about them.
Netflix is number 1. Amazon will do it till they get bored. So out of those 3 big guns, 2 of them are vanity projects, basically. And Hollywood is scared to death. And
2 of them are vanity projects? Amazon has quite a few series that are in the cultural zeitgeist. Hell, Rings of Power is in the cultural zeitgeist because people like Nerdrotic couldn't shut up about it. But also you got like The Boys, and now it has a spin-off series. You got Invincible. I think there's more from Amazon, but those are the big ones from Amazon. They're really, yeah.
You know, Disney is about to go through what Warner Brothers went through. Warner Brothers used to be on top of the world a decade ago. They had Harry Potter. They had Nolan doing Batman. Game of Thrones was doing great. Like, they were firing on all cylinders. Now they're billions in debt. Same thing's going to happen to Disney.
Well, dude, Warner Brothers is actually an interesting case because David Zaslav is making bank. He's making bank on the fact that Warner Brothers, yeah, Barbie was huge, but they aren't really doing that great. He's obviously doing tax credits and shit to make money. It's Warner Brothers is quickly becoming an example of like they've always been one of the worst studios. Sony and Warner Brothers have pretty much been the worst studios, it seems like, to work for. And Warner Brothers, it seems like, even though Sony might be completely creatively bankrupt, Warner Brothers seems like, oh yeah, we'll let you make a movie, and then we will destroy it and never let it see the light of day. And can you imagine actually being a creative and putting your time and effort into a fucking project and having it just disappear for David Zaslav's tax credit? Fuck, that would be awful.
Disney, who rises up, maybe Universal, but there'll be 4 or 5 studios running everything. Like
Universal rises up. Universal's been one of the biggest movie studios for a while. Universal has the Jurassic Park movies and the Fast and Furious movies. Universal is a big deal.
Again, just like it was in the beginning, just like it has been over the last century, but they're not going to be the biggest thing anymore. And because they're competing against us. They're competing against you.
What? The movie studios are competing against YouTube channels? Oh my god, you are so full of shit. You're not even in the same business, you fuckface. I think I'm done. I think we've pretty much made the point. These guys are anti-art. I'll just keep on saying it. In fact, it's something I want to keep on repeating. Because these guys are fucking anti-art. They don't care. Like, they seem to be, like, arguing that movie studios should just make copy-paste movies rather than let any, like, artist actually do what they want to make. And it's really, really disgusting. The very fact that they want to argue that they're not political agents when they're talking to fucking Benny Johnson, the chief creative consultant for TPUSA, former who works for Newsmax, who used to work for Breitbart, who used to work for The Blaze, who did work for Buzzfeed until he was fired for being a plagiarist. But yeah, these guys are just so full of shit. They're so, like, this interview feels like a couple of guys sniffing their own farts, frankly. It's the scene from South Park. They're fucking sniffing their own farts. But you know, that was fun.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.